When my parents had me at 20 weeks at an ultrasound, they found out that I was going to be missing my left arm. And at first they were scared and they didn't know what was going to happen. My mom was concerned, how I would put up my hair, where I would wear my wedding ring when I was older. And they got through it together. My dad really helped my mom, and he did a ton of research. And so when my mom would wake up, there would be piles of paper of research on the table about other kids with differences. And so they just did a lot of research. And then when I was born, they figured everything out on their own, and they helped raise me to be the woman that I am today. And so growing up, I never really saw myself as different. Kids at school didn't really bully me because of my arm. When I went to class every new school day, on the first day, my parents would come in and they would tell kids, this is Sarah, she's missing her left arm. We would bring in my prosthetics and they would explain everything to the kids so that it was normal. I went through school like any other kid. I typed on the computer. I did a one-hand program instead of the other one that the other kids did. And then when I was 8, I couldn't put up my hair at school. I would watch girls put up their hair and I couldn't do that yet. And originally, when I was trying to figure out how to put up my hair, I had to get on the floor with my head like upside down and figure it out that way. And then I couldn't jump rope in gym class, and I couldn't play on the monkey bars at school in the playground. So there was just a few things that I noticed, I can't do that and other kids can. I am a little different. So my parents decided to get me a prosthetic at a very young age, and they got me physical therapy so that I could learn to use the prosthetic. So when I was really little and I had a prosthetic, I used it to crawl so that I could crawl evenly, and in the future that would help my back so that I didn't have scoliosis. As a kid, when you grow, you have to get new prosthetics. So we would go to Chicago every once in a while when I needed a new prosthetic. And growing up, on the first day of school, in my dance class, things like that, I would wear my prosthetic. And so my mom did that so that I would get used to the prosthetic because they can be heavy. I decided not to wear a prosthetic because it's just a hassle for me. It's really heavy, and I think that I can do a lot more things without it rather than with it. I didn't feel different until I realized that I couldn't do everything that other kids could do. In one of my classes at school, I had to give a speech, and I gave the speech, and when I talk, I typically use both of my hands. So I was using my little arm and my right arm, obviously. And our classmates could tell us something in the notes on the computer about how we did or what they thought of the speech. And I remember reading through what the kids in my class had said, and someone had wrote that my little arm was distracting. And I remember just reading that and thinking to myself, why would someone write that? And then I read the other comment and it said that I shouldn't use my little arm to speak. And when I read that, it was kind of just like a stab at me. And I couldn't understand why someone would say that, because it was just natural for me to use my little arm to speak like anyone else would use their two hands. So after I read the comment, I just wanted to cry in the middle of class. So I stepped out of the room, and I remember going to the bathroom at school and walking down the hallway, and I just was sobbing. And I went to the bathroom and I just kept thinking to myself of how different I was from everyone else at school. And I was thinking about how other people, what they thought of me or how I looked. So I looked in the big mirror in the bathroom, and I rolled down my sleeve, and I just looked at myself for a little while I was crying about it. And I remember looking back in the mirror after I had cried and trying to wipe my tears so that I could go back to class. And I just looked in the mirror and I said to myself, Sarah, you're stronger than this. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to think what other people say about you is true. And I looked back in the mirror and said, you need to be strong for yourself and for everyone else around you. And I rolled back up my sleeve, and then I looked at my little arm, and I realized in that moment that it was okay that I was different. It was okay that I did things differently, and I didn't need someone to tell me that it was distracting or that I shouldn't use it, because no matter what I have in my life, there's always going to be comments. There's always going to be things that are going to be said. There's always those times when it can be so frustrating, and I have that breakdown and I have that meltdown that I don't think that I'm going to be able to do something. But I figure out in the end that I am able to do that. I just have to work really hard at it, and breakdowns never help. I just continued to go through life, and I decided to use what I had in my story and everything that God gave me as a testimony. So I created my blog, I'm Perfectly Sarah, and that's what I'm doing now. And I wanted to share not only the good moments in my life, because that's what everyone tends to share on social media, but I wanted to share the really raw moments and the real details of the bad one-arm days that I have, and that not every day am I super confident or comfortable in my own skin, even though that's what people may see me as, because I don't really show that elsewhere, because it's normally at home when I go through those moments. So I wanted to share that so that other kids, other little girls or boys going through the exact same thing could look at that, read my story, or their parents could, and they could understand maybe what I went through, that they're not alone, and that they could have some advice on what to do. And really the whole entire answer to everything that I go through is I just pray about it and ask God, God, what is your plan for me? What do you have for me? Where should I go? But some days are hard and some days are great. That's life, and we're all human, and that's what's supposed to happen. Different times in my life, there's going to be a challenge, but I know that I'm always gonna get through it. So I always say, we all have differences. Some of us have brown hair, some of us have blonde hair, and that's a difference. And so our differences don't define who we are as people, but they're a part of our story that God has written for us. And He's going to guide us through that story and any obstacle that comes our way.